everybody's okay. Pardon the robot voice. Um, yeah, well, I think everybody here's been on this call before, but I'll just reiterate. I like to I've been in the habit of lately kind of just freestyling for the first couple of moments and allowing people to share what's on their heart, allowing people to kind of, decompress because, it's like we're all in this other world that I was talking to a man today, and a very notable, honorable man. And, we were saying, the world can be very hypnotic. The world can be and it's really easy to like go into it with this, like, okay, and then find out you're like, oh, by the end of the day, I was totally lost, like for the last hour or so, And so I just want to like open this up as a safe space for people to be able to share what's on their heart, what's on their mind, what's been going on, thoughts, feelings, could be a question, whatever. It's a completely open space. So just want to allow time and room for that. But also no pressure. I have some stuff prepared that I'm pretty excited about. But
If no one's going in, I'll go in. This is day 4 of my fast, and I personally feel weaker when I fast, and interesting things go on. I decided I'd do a 5-day fast or more. And I don't know if it's going to be more. Tomorrow is day 5. I used to fast a long time ago. And then a little bit earlier, a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, I did a 3-day fast. And I've been inspired for whatever reasons now to do these fasts again. And there's definitely release and purification going on, I would say. So I'm very glad of that. And this, in many ways, this past month has been the best of my life. And I've had some pretty amazing times in my life. And of course, the Ringing Cedars are part of that. I started reading them about 2.5 years ago, but finding Gabriel's group has been a very big part of that. And the other thing that I won't touch upon tonight is the second most precious thing in the world to me right now. And I believe the key to so many things. So having discovered that a couple of weeks ago and becoming involved in it, all of it together has created the kind of synchronicity that I haven't felt since I've been out of the contiguous 48 states in South Africa and Botswana and Ireland and places like that. And since I was around Maharishi way back when. And I think, we all know how wonderful synchronicity can be. I love synchronicity. So I'm cruising, but weak at the moment. And I'm in with that, as we say in the Mankind Project men's circles.
nice. Thank you for your share, Mark. That sounds like a journey you're on, my friend, and I wish you the best on that journey. And what fruit you desire from it, I'm sure will come forth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know I talked a little bit about how I've been feeling recently, but I have a couple more things I could jump in with. So as the one thing I have been feeling, you know, a sort of lightness coming with spring and getting over my illness is this renewed excitement to explore and plan this for the summer. I feel uh, the life force is being rich for that right now in the world. And so, and also my semester, I'm a professional grad student right now, and my semester is coming to a close. So that's going to open up some time for travel. And I've got a trip planned to Southern California again to check out that part of the world soon. So I'm getting pretty excited about that. However, I'm also a little bit overwhelmed. I'm, uh, I guess, by the thought of trying to figure things out and making decisions over the next year, because there's so many different places I want to explore. Certainly before um, figuring out where I want to have a piece of land. Maybe it'll be simple. Maybe I'll come to one of these places without having to need to explore everywhere and know, oh, this is it. So that might happen too. But right now in my head, I've got all these places. I've got Southern California I want to explore more, New Mexico. I haven't really explored Colorado enough. Maybe Idaho, the Pacific Northwest, and that's just in in the U.S. And then it comes to mind whether I want to go outside the U.S. So there's lots there, and then I'm also starting to think. Uh, yeah, one of the questions that I put in the Telegram group that's been on my mind recently is what kind of climate do you need in order to support the diet that you want? So I'm vegetarian. Where can I be vegetarian? What kind of foods are available? How do you make that work? Especially with my body, and because I think it's maybe a body by body basis. So those are some hopefully some relevant questions, but things that have been on my mind recently, and all that's coming with some people are saying there's going to be food shortages by the end of the summer. So I'm not there's almost an urgency to figure this out, but then I'm kind of realizing, well, no, I don't. It doesn't. If it works out by the end of the summer, then that's great. If not, then I, there's other avenues, and that's more likely than not.
Thank you for the share, Alex. That's I feel that sense of pressure that you feel in my own life, and I've felt it for a long time, and only now am I beginning to peek behind the veil of what does it look like with a life without pressure. I'm just peeking. I'm not doing it, but peeking behind the veil seems to bring a lot of fruit too. What came to mind is the story that Anastasia has in book. I believe book seven, I think it is, or maybe book seven, I think, where Volodya is holding, this stone in his hand and it's burning his hand. And, that story goes on. I don't need, that's not the point of the story. The incident is resolved and Vladimir's, asking, or sorry, Anastasia is telling her son, um, okay, I'm remembering clearly. Sorry, guys, forgive me. They all call back to her as she's walking away to go prepare breakfast. She says, I'll go prepare us something to eat." And this is in the morning. And they ask her, how did you do that? Because she managed to solve the situation, basically, that was going to lead in this kind of catastrophic event. And she's like, one must never let fear fetter one's thoughts, even in whatever situation. And it just kind of comes to me that, like, yeah, in these times of like real things happening, like agricultural, things are coming to a halt. Like, has anyone checked out the soil lately? It sucks. Like, you know what I mean? Food is not going to continue to be coming in like it is, and that's natural. All of these things are coming to a head, but I think it's I hear and I see all of it. I do my I do my due diligence. I could probably do more, but I also, for me personally, I don't let that distract me from the vision and the goal. Um, because it's nothing new is happening in my opinion. But I don't want to get off on a tangent. Where I still want to leave space for everyone here to say anything that they'd like. Um, and if not, then I do have something I'd like to share with you guys that I think would be a really cool catalyst to discussion. However, the floor is completely open for anyone and everyone at this moment.
Hi.
Right. I think you'll be pleased to hear that I recently set up a planter's box with some soil and I'm growing some vegetables for the first time.
How has that experience been for you so far, Danesh?
It's been very gratifying, extremely gratifying. I can quite, I mean, even just putting the soil together in the planter's box and mixing it up was just very therapeutic. And I mean, I was expecting that I would benefit from it in many ways, simply because I've increased my understanding and connection with nature. But nothing quite prepared me for the experience of actually, you know, planting seeds. By the way, I did use your methodology from your YouTube video, so thank you for that.
It's not my methodology. It's
But
not.
you know what I mean. It did help. Your refresher was
Thank you.
quite amazing, and so yeah, so I'm excited. So I think that is the one positive development that I'd like to focus my attention on. It's given me great meaning, and I've been very happy to take part in that process.
Sorry about that. That's an amazing fact there. Yeah, I remember the first time that like when I first read the books, I was so inspired. I built myself a garden, and I remember like getting the soil. I remember building the beds. I remember that whole process, and it was absolutely magical. That first, it's like the first time, it's like the first time you could see the sun or see, it's like, wow, it's a livid experience. Um, Nothing can break man's connection with the natural world. Nothing. So I mean, it makes me happy that we're all reviving it. And Danesh, you're like a perfect example of that right now. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and I felt like I was part of the grand process of creation. I was doing my own bit. And so in a way, I felt like a creator in a way I've not felt quite before.
Wow, that's powerful. That's a really, yeah, that's powerful. Yeah.
I'd like to try to speak about the upcoming eclipses that are going to be beginning on Friday and going right through May. That has a huge effect of pouring energy into the earth, into the new earth, but through us all. They're going to affect us in major ways. And the following next Thursday, there's a big sun portal coming through of amazing light that we can embody along with our own consciousness of where we are. But it will be huge and will have huge ramifications in our lives personally and in the collective world and what's happening right now. I think that we'll see things shift quite dramatically. And I also think that we are also, as we're going through a portal of light, we are also embracing a portal of death. And I don't think the death thing we know very well. And I think that we have to experience it more in order for us to move forward, because it's something that we kind of shy away from. It's not looked at. We don't celebrate it or honor ceremony in deep relationship to those that are passing away, because really when we leave, we're still here. But somehow in our society, we have not talked about that very much, or within ourselves, how much do we think that when I leave this body, I'm a light being and I'm just somewhere else. So we have this ability to have a relationship now, even in a deeper way, when we look inward at everything around fear. everything around fear. Because as the new earth is coming, there's going to be so much also trauma that's happening everywhere. How do we embrace that trauma in community, in family? So I just wanted to offer the fact that there are these big energies coming in, and all the planets are lined up in a certain way. So we are living not only on the new earth, but we're living a relationship with the universe now. And so we can read those two together and be talking to the universe and weaving it all into the earth through our heart. So there's a lot of wisdom that's coming now, and the ability to receive much more light and much more energy.
Thank you for that. What is the do you know what the alignment of the eclipse, specifically what signs or what planets are going to be affected by this eclipse?
Let me see, I'm bad at that. So it's Venus, Uranus definitely is in there. Uranus is the planet that causes a lot of stuff to happen. It can be good. It can be, Uranus can give you money, or it can give you an earthquake. Yeah. So we had Pluto today. Pluto takes you to the underworld to go over anything that you've been through or you've got to go through. It can be unpleasant. Pluto digs everything up from your past, but in looking at it going down, it's how we heal the world. We heal the world by going deep into our wounds, our karmic wounds, what we've inherited, what we brought down as souls to heal. So I've been studying astrology for 5 years. I'm a part of, I don't know if you've heard the group Astrology Hub. It's been initiated over 5 years. It's wonderful. It's got a huge following like this, and you're able to really start to understand the world in a new way, because of course, we all know how we're affected by the moon, and this Friday is a new moon. So with the eclipse, and the new moon energy, it's going to be amped up. So don't be surprised if things don't happen in the world, things happen in your life, or you're just feeling a lot of emotion. But I would say that one of the biggest healing things that we can have right now is to embrace our emotions, because that's how we live. We live through emotions. But basically, we've learned to either suppress or put them into behaviors, addictions, and everything. But once you start to open your heart and receive, you just go, oh my goodness, this is the new earth. We're living through our emotions, our emotional realm that has been freed. So you become creators. You're all becoming creators. But well, I just love all this topic, but I really have found that studying the stars and the planets and how they move with us, they move in our bodies. Yeah. Like I have Neptune. Neptune. Today's a big Neptune. All this week was Neptune. Neptune is like, oh, it's like smoking marijuana. Like, oh, I want to live like this. I want to live with vegetables, everything. It makes you dream. Where Pluto sends you down to the deep. Venus is the great feminine. Cedars is the great mother, that if she wants to come down hard on us, she can send bad weather. So I just think we're at a time where we have to go deeper into the feeling of death, because it's not an area we talk a lot about, but we are going to be experiencing some death around us as we move into the next part. So I would say it's not a topic that it's talked a lot about. And the part that we are souls that move easily into the next round. Actually, I really feel that's what we're becoming on Earth. We're becoming light beings. So part of this light being is understanding the death cycle. And what's great about this is we're all talking about gardening, right? Bringing new life, new community. But we definitely need to have a relationship with the universe, leading it down the sun, the moon, and deep for our primal Mother Earth. I do a lot of ceremony on my land, and it's all needed to be together, but a lot of it's intuitively done by listening to the earth and the nature around, the fairy around. Anyway, it's nice to be with everyone.
I'd like to just say something quick about that. I hear you so profoundly. I do 6 healing modalities, and 4 of them are my own. And one of them I call embracing death. And it's such a travesty what we've done around birth and death. And, you know, death can be such a beautiful thing, even though there can be physical suffering around it. And for us, in a more collective way, to embrace death now would be a very powerful, liberating, wonderful thing. And I've communed with disincarnates a fair amount, and most of them are recently deceased because oftentimes the recently deceased are open and eager to communing with the living, even if they don't know them that well. And I have some wonderful experiences with that. But I just wanted to thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, we're so intricately connected to the planets. I remember driving one day. I wasn't driving, which was allowing me to let my thought kind of fly in space freely. And I remember having this realization that it is not so much that we are at the mercy of the planets, but it is rather that our collective intentions also shape the movement of the planets. And so it really, for me, like you were saying, pardon me, your name, it's Maureen's friend. What? I just want
Wendy. Wendy.
Wendy. Okay. Um, you know, a part of me, you know, had this philosophy. I've studied astrology. I have a number of astrology books right there. I studied it very deeply, and I became to kind of see it as a religion and a dogma. And a part of me really felt and this is just my personal experience. I'm not speaking for astrology as a whole. I'm not speaking for anybody else's experience. It's just mine. In my soul, my personality, I was incorporating it like a dogma, and I started to feel trapped by it. And so what was huge for me was this realization that yes, not only are we in harmony with the planets, but actually it is they who want to carry out our will, and it is they who seek. When a person has a loving thought and a creative thought, they go into action. That was huge for me. You know, it really shifted um, my understanding. But I want to honor Shane. You had your hand up. I don't know if that was deliberate or not, but please, brother, speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Man, I've been trying to find this part that I swear I saw in the books before, where Anastasia was talking about, well, she talked about astrology, I thought, but I can't remember where it was. I keep looking for it. I just want to know if anybody knew if there was a part in the book where she talked about
Yeah.
astrology.
Yeah, she does. She says that basically a horoscope would be most accurately taken from the moment of conception. And she says that, you know, modern astrology, I don't remember her specific words or comments on modern astrology, but just that a horoscope would be more accurately taken if it was done at the moment of conception. And she does talk about, she goes into detail about how we view astrology, you know, and how
Okay.
it's, I'll make a note though. I'll make a mental note and I will try to find that quote. Are you on the Telegram, Shane?
I don't have Telegram yet. No.
Okay, okay. So you found out on the Facebook page?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think it's book one, to be honest.
Yeah, I haven't read book 1 in a while. That's probably why.
Oh. Yeah, I think it's book one. Um, but I'm not sure. Wow, I just flipped to this page, which is really interesting, right about the planets. Page 107, book one. Anastasia, what do plants growing in the garden have to do with this, and what is their role in all of this? And she's is talking about thought transfer before this. She's talking about um, man accelerating his thought, and she says, "What do you mean? What have they to do with it?" At the same time as the child is getting to know the world of plants as part of the functioning of the universe, he's also entering into contact with his planets. With their help and the help of his parents, he quickly, very quickly, gets to know the truth and develops intensely in the fields of psychology, philosophy, and the natural sciences. Your discipline. But if the game goes on and some kind of man-made object from the artificial world is used for an example, the child will become lost. So she's talking about, I think they were speaking, on raising children there, and she's saying that like it's really just important to create this naturalized setting for them because they will kind of learn that. Um, but yeah, I that's interesting. I'll do my best to find that quote. I know that I've heard her say that because in book eight, the Vedrus, where they're speaking about the conception of between Radomir and Libumila, there's a part where she gets up after they've just had their grand co-creation, and she goes over to the window and she ties this thing and marking like the day of conception because that was a traditional thing in the Bedrus. Mr. Mark, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, speaking about Vedrus and all of that, this isn't, I don't think, mentioned or delineated anywhere in the books. But one would think that she would be aligned with Jyotish astrology far more than Western astrology. And I don't know if we have any way of knowing, but that's what just came to mind.
I wanted to chime in as well, because I've been learning a little bit about astrology, just like I would consider myself a noob, as the young people say these days, in the astrology realm, because but I got really curious about it because I see a lot of planets in the Akashic records. Like I see them, and a lot of things when I started to see things, a lot of it began by noticing things in the night sky, because I spent a lot of time just sitting under the sky at night, and I noticed things that drew my attention, and then came to find out what constellations they were, and then just in the last 3 months I worked with a mentor, an astrologer, and she's really interesting because so how I see it is like when we're conceived, when the moment of conception takes place, as well as like when we're born, it's like the energy comes down through, like a metaphor would be like a slide or a water slide, like a tunnel. So it's like the soul has a history, except it's not linear. But when it enters the dimension of the third, like the density of the material world of the third dimension, it's like all these different, like a water slide is the best analogy. What I see, it's like a tube kind of, but when we go through this tube, we're actually imprinted with the energetic signatures of where the planets are at that exact second moment in the sky. So we are not our astrology. We are not, it's not as like our soul is actually much purer. It's almost like we get like a harmonic coding that comes with us when we come in, that can explain a lot more to ourselves about the tendencies we have, and like, because it's almost like it'd be like if the water slide was full of like rainbow water. And so depending on which water slide you went on, you come out with different colors on you. And then the more that you learn about those colors, the more you're like, oh, now I understand more about why I have this interest or that disposition or whatever, because it's like I'm using like paint as but it's almost more like a harmonic imprinting. So our essence actually, or the tone of our essence is imprinted from the planets, depending on our entrance. So sometimes we can get hung up on the astrology piece as like it defines us, but it doesn't define us. It just helps us understand ourselves on a deeper level. This is my understanding. I'm not trying to say this is like this is how I've come to understand based on what I see from souls coming in. And then this astrologer that I did some work with, mentorship, and I'm doing a year-long thing with her as well to learn. But she talks about like golden age astrology, and I think there's traditional sidereal, and then she talks about true sidereal. So in the traditional, it was like it took the astrology of where the planets were at a certain point and then created the astrology from that. Whereas true sidereal, it's actually taking like what's going on currently with the planets and using that as the base for the astrology, not like a snap shot of what it was they were at a certain time and then applying it, but actually balancing it with what's actually going on in the planet. So I don't fully understand the traditional and all of the intricacies, but I definitely I was drawn to her because of the fact that there was like an engagement with what was actually happening in the cosmos, and following that as the true sidereal, or the golden age astrology. And I'm finding the learning about the planets and like Maureen, I don't know if that's the name, but she was talking about how like each of the planets there's like a certain cleansing or learning that takes place through those planets. And that's definitely like I can see when I see souls attached to planets or like moving from, it's almost like I said before, it's like the soul itself is very pure. And then there's something to do with like we are much more fundamentally connected to the planet, like our planet Earth, and our souls. Like, how do I try to say this? It's like there's something about the living planet, but it's living in a different way than what we necessarily define as living. But this planet, the planets have an energy that is like intricately, there's a very, very strong connection with how our souls evolve is a word that I think would apply, how our souls cleanse and clear. There's something very connected to the planetary bodies themselves. So that's all I know from what I see is that. So I'm trying to learn more about it because I see the planets a lot, and not just in our solar system, but in many solar systems. And so I'm just trying to learn the names of them and what we've come to understand, like the history and the ancient knowledge that's been preserved, because I think many cultures have had knowledge from of the stars. And so we have one narrative, that we're currently talking about, but like the Mayans, the Vedras, there's been so many different interpretations. And so like seeking out that yeah, just our different understandings and how we've interpreted them thus far on our journey here on planet Earth.
That's beautiful, Jewel. Thank you so much for sharing. That how I understand it quickly is from just a well, let me let these people into the waiting room. Sorry. How I understand it is that there's tropical, how I or traditional, and then there's sidereal or sidereal, whatever it's called. I don't know either. I'm not the Latin person who made that name. But basically, tropical goes off the theoretical positioning of the planets. So there is, like you said, an established day, which was thousands of years ago. And it's the same thing that happens with our actual calendar, our Roman, the Julian calendar. So it's they're kind of synced, but not really. But sidereal goes off, yeah, the actual positioning of the planet. So if anybody does a sidereal chart or a Vedic chart, they notice that usually their sun sign is actually a whole sign before them. So just an example, I'm a Sagittarius and tropical, but in sidereal I'm a Scorpio, because I'm so there's that distinction. But I want to hone this back in. This is the Kin's domain call. I want to hone this all back in and channel this. I saw this beautiful funnel into this knowledge because we all have this affinity to want to explore the universe, right? We all have this affinity to want to explore God's creation. And a part of us, I think, does have this tendency in my brain. I still am, we want to really understand the mechanics behind it. And, we know from this prayer, right here, that like, don't try to figure it out. He says, don't try to figure it out. Again, just be happy. I ask of you. That's all I ask of you. Where does he say at the end here? Yeah, you are frightened by judgment in hell. So I think it's like in our search of figuring things out, we feel like we're going to avert that, but really we have the tools within us. And one thing I wanted to kind of connect this with is that I remember Anastasia talking about how in the beginning they split the sciences, and out of the split came astrology and came psychology and philosophy and geology or whatever, came all of the segregated sciences. But at one point they were all unified as the science of imagery. And I think it is, when I look at the world, I do see fragmentation going on in every aspect. And so then what comes to mind for me is the question of, okay, well, if we are our own researchers or we are our own creators, then we need a proper place. We need a proper place to carry out our research. And all of us at this very moment, unless there's someone here living on their beautiful domain, we are not in that space that, with Jewel, you are. Yeah, that's right. You're on your space. Planting birch trees, that's right. Gathering birch water and planting evergreens by hand. I remember your husband saying he was doing. In raising, birthed in that space, raised children in that space, the access that they will have, that they will be able to communicate and understand, is going to far surpass what any of us can talk about in this moment. I mean, it'll be kind of laughable, like they'll be kind of like laughing at us, I think. And not in a like, haha, look at them, like in a more like compassionate, friendly way of like, oh, they were talking about that for so long. Like, you know what I mean? They were trying to figure this, and it's like, I think that's what happens when consciousness rises. And for me, practically, and this is just my own inner principle that feels as strongly, is that, Kin's domains are the vehicle to do this. It is the most practical step to solve climate change. It's the most practical step to solve, a fertility crisis. It is the practical answer to everything. Because why isn't it? I would challenge someone to say like, well, why isn't it? For me, it's so logical and rational, and we're all raised in a system of irrationality. We've programmed ourselves to live in this way, in an irrational way. And so I had a section here in book 4. It's called Everyone Can Build a Home, page 178. The most important thing, Vladimir, is that even today, everyone can build a home. Everyone can feel God with their soul and live in paradise. One single moment is all that separates paradise from people living on the earth today. Each one possesses conscious awareness within. When dogmas do not interfere with this awareness, then look, Vladimir, what can come to pass. Um, and I'm feeling that lately based on my own circumstances, this really reflective, and maybe there's something going on in the planets that are encouraging me, but this reflection on the significance of these domains. Because in speaking with people, I've had people say, is that a cult? Is that a what? And it is challenging to find the words sometimes that accurately convey like the grandiose nature of all of this. So I just wanted to bring that point up for discussion and really kind of ground us in what we are all here to do, and really the attainability of what we're here to do. Like, it's not far off, one single moment. And that's, if you don't want to take what somebody else says, you should never. You should always feel it in yourself, but what do you feel about that? I'm curious to hear everyone's thoughts about that, and inspirations or comments. So I'd like to leave the floor open there.
Well, nicely put there, Wyatt. I hear what you're saying. It actually sounds complicated because of where we're coming from. But if you think about it, if you deconstruct living in nature, aligned with nature, as part of a kin's domain, it's not such an outlandish idea, right? It only feels that way because we're so removed from it, right? We have to justify and explain to people, oh, well, this is a different way of living. It's so out there. It's cultish, or however you want to call it. But actually, it's not. It's more. It's no pun intended. It's the most natural way of being on this planet.
Beautifully put, Danesh. Jeez. Yeah. It does appear complex from the point of view many of the people in the world are looking at it from. It's not, though. It's very simple.
I wanted to share something just on the note that you said around children raised on kin's domains. And as the people that were on one of the other calls the other day when talking about my oldest son is my new soul. And the other day he was just like riffing. And I was like, wife, what did you just say? And he was just like joking around, like, but just talking like his thoughts, like just like it was like he was saying things like, but he was talking real things. But like, I mean, I don't even know, like I can't quite explain why, like what was inspiring him to talk, because I could tell that he was kind of joking around, but the words that were coming out, I was like, it was like that moment. I think I told the story of when we were walking on the path and he said, why I love the nature so much. And I was like, why? And he's, because I just was the nature. And anyway, he's 9 now. And he was saying, well, I wonder if I can even just.
I've been here since the beginning.
He's 9. I don't know how many people in your group there know what 9-year-old personalities are like, but
I used to be a particle just floating around.
Can you hear him?
I wanted to check if it was the Earth.
What he said is, he's saying, I've been here since the beginning. I was just a particle floating around, and I was looking for the perfect place, and I found Earth, and I thought he said I wanted the perfect place for humans, and Earth was, he leans right in, Earth was perfect, as long as they don't make friggin' plastic. Anyway, I lost my mind laughing. I was like, what are you even talking about? Is that real words? Like, where are these thoughts coming from? And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, so were you actually the particle? And he's like, I don't know. Like, it was like, he literally was just like, words were coming out of his mouth, and it cracked me up, because he was like, and I found Earth, and Earth was perfect, as long as they don't make friggin' plastic. Just killed me. Anyway, that's kind
It's
of
good enough for humans. So, and it was perfect. Then I thought, as long as I don't make freaking plastic.
Anyway.
Did he record that for you? Like he
Yeah, so we were talking in the car and he was just riffing. Like I was driving him somewhere, a birthday party he was going to, and he was just riffing. Like just sometimes he'll just make noises and talk. And he said this thing, and I was like, okay, Live, I'm gonna hand you my phone and I want you to just say what you're just keep talking about what you were talking about. So then he just did it, and I was like, okay, because I was like, this is like, yeah. It just, I couldn't believe that he was like, those were his thoughts, just his thoughts, right? Like, anyway, it was good. So I just thought it connected. It was a funny connection to what you're
That's
saying about
huge.
how when
That's
they're
so
open, they let themselves.
right. That is so beautiful. Gosh. Every story, you need to start a compilation of your stories. Because seriously, these stories that you have of your children, yeah, the one where I just was the nature. Right? Wasn't that it, Jewel? Like where that's why it was so beautiful, the leaf on the path, was that what it was?
Yeah, we were just, yeah, he saw like we were walking on the path, and his name's Life, but it's spelled like leaf. But he was saying like, yeah, he was saying that he's like, do you know why people don't care about the nature? And I was like, no, like I don't understand it at all. And he was like, and he said because they've been human too long. And I think when you were talking, you made a comment just this time around you had the word, it's like the constructs that we hold, and you were saying like if we just put them aside, how open everything would be. I can't,
Dogma.
what was it?
Dogma.
Yeah, the dogma. So like I think when we get caught in the loop in the density of the planet, when who is asking about the souls, like what I've seen too is that from the cosmos, the density's been denser here. So it's been harder for humans to act the soul to leave and to go through the planet cycles and have, it's like a cleansing. Like I don't explain it other than it's like again, I see it a lot like tones. So it's like a retoning. It's like when a resonating of a string to bring it into alignment, like when you're tuning a guitar. It's like our souls, they need to co-regulate so with the universe. So when our souls leave and they go through the planet energetics, then we co-regulate. But there's been a density because for the last 2,000 years actually here. So at one point I thought we were being trapped. Like when I could see it from what I was seeing, it was like, are someone trapping us here? But I don't think it is that at all. I think it's just the density. It's been harder for our souls to go in and out. It's been, the veil has, now the veil is becoming thinner. Like we're feeling more, time's losing its, like time feels less, it's changing, right? Like we're having, lots of us are feeling that feeling of like time's changing. There's been times historically on the planet where the veil's been a lot thinner, like during the Egyptian times and the different cultures where they've in caves where they've shown how much thinner the veil was with the cosmos. And now we're going back into that where it's thinner. We were in a really, really dense time for like around 2,000 years, and this was the densest I think it's ever been for Earth. So anyway, my son who came in, he's one of the ones that are coming, lots of new souls are coming in, that he's been a particle. Like we had the conversation, and I think it was Mark that said about the God particles, and maybe my son was one of those. And I never even told him any of that story around this conversation. And so then when he was riffing about being a particle, I was like, we just had this conversation about the fact that he knows he's a new soul, but he has memories of being innate of nature, like not human memories, but of nature. And so he shares them once in a while. And you said I should start a thing. Actually, he really wants to start a YouTube channel for.
He should.
Yeah, well,
Good.
I think next year I might, because I'm going to homeschool next year I said, we can create one, but I'm going to manage it. And then you can learn how to do it. And that way, like it's a co thing, not just him having his own YouTube channel at 9 years old or
So
10, I guess,
so
technically.
so not to jump in here, but so you're homeschooling your kids next year, first year.
Yeah.
Ah, you need to connect with the woman who's on this call right now. Her name's Megan with the swirly thing by her
Is
name.
she from Hawaii?
Oh yeah.
I'm here.
Oh, hi,
We are already
Megan.
connected. Hi.
Yeah, we're like in
We're
connection.
already doing it. We're
Yeah.
going to.
Okay,
Our
beautiful.
kids are gonna like teach each other stuff next year. We're gonna have like
Perfect.
a regular date. Yeah.
Perfect. That is so cool.
I'm
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm sitting here listening to your story going, yep, yes. And I'm listening to it while I'm working. So I'm slightly distracted, but I don't know how to explain it. You're articulating it so well. Is that yeah. Sometimes it almost sounds like a joke when something comes through out of my kids. And you're like, wait, what? What did you say? But if you're listening closely and you're receptive, you realize the profoundness of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea of a YouTube channel for the kids. I mean, wouldn't that be fun? As like a across the continent project for our kids to homeschool, they could do their their YouTube channel, because my kids are asking for the same thing. They want to tell people. And it's so funny you're talking about the plastic, because that's been a huge thing. Like the one time we have this, sitting by the coast, and it was whale season, and we had like four or five whales, all with their babies breaching. And they were both of my girls were interpreting, and they drew a picture that the way that they were breaching was like this pathway, and they were telling us the message, which they said, look, Mom, can't you see what they're writing? We need your help. Like the way they jumped and arched and fell down. And it could just be silly kid talk, but it was so profound, and they kept bringing up and drawing the symbol that the whales were jumping. And it was about the plastic and the pollution. It's like, why are you killing the earth? Why are you poisoning the ocean? Anyway, I just was popping in because you said my name, and I'm really excited for these projects to come. And we just yesterday picked out our piece. We're gonna, I think, get 10 acres for this space for the children to just, as part of this project. So yay, more fun to come.
Oh my gosh. I'll let you get back to your work, but you're leaving us like you just came in, you popped in, you like shined your light, and I'm just like, oh gosh, this is gonna be crazy. Like having all these thoughts of these new children just like, and then the effect on other children who are gonna watch that and be like, Mom, I want to be like that. Like I want to do that. What are we doing?
Or that they are that, right? They already are that. They're going, Mom, see, they're like me.
Right.
And it's like those in the books they talk about, right? That the children come together, and then all of a sudden they're in the Kremlin because they have a message to say. And one of them goes, oh yeah, Mr. President, I have to go pee-pee, and makes them go out so that they can just speak their message without anybody regulating it. It's really cool. I mean, it's happening. So it's just an honor to be a parent during this time, I guess. It's just amazing to watch it all unfold.
Wow.
Hi.
So on a similar note, Wyatt, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you a question. Do your plants talk to you?
Yeah. I have a really, I mean, it's like just a regular partnership now. I mean, geez, like it's been how many years? So there's an oak tree out in my backyard, near my sleep spot, and every night and every morning I go and I greet this tree. I mean, I can't even call it this tree. It's like my friend. I had a hard time developing the energy, whether it was a gender, male or female, for a while, but it's interesting because it kind of it kind of moves through the lines. It's been very like motherly, and it's also been very like, hey, this is the way to go. Like, so I'm not sure about that, but um, yeah, definitely have had incredible experiences with that. You know, I think it's I think all I'm gonna say is like intentional communication with plants is reciprocated. Like, are you listening? That's it. Like that's it. Um, and that thought it's huge. Like they really all do. Now some of them are kind of like, no, I'm not talking to you right now. You know what I mean? Like I kind of get that vibe from them sometimes. Um, or they're just more. I wouldn't say closed. Their energy just isn't more like inviting. It's kind of more like they're doing a job. Um, I get that with certain weeds in my garden. I'm kind of like, you're not telling me to come and like caress you. You're telling me to like let you lay and do your job. And then there's other plants that are like really beckoning, you know, and it's not always some mystical thing. It can be like, wow, well, you look really cool. Like you have a interesting scent. You're drawing me closer to you. Like those things aren't just random by design, you know what I mean? Like beautiful flowers have a beautiful effect on the human soul. A smelly weed maybe doesn't have a bad effect, but it's not necessarily like what we don't want to go, you know. Um, yeah, definitely. What about you, Danesh? Anything? Well, anything yet? You've been speaking about this garden.
Well, the reason I asked this question is because I wanted to draw the parallel between Megan's children communicating with the whales, or the whales communicating with Megan's children, and you communicating with your plants. So in a way, I don't think you have to be a child to see this or create that connection. I think you can create it at any point.
I agree. I think if anybody feels that they don't have that, because you do, but if you feel like you don't, just isolate yourself for 3 days. Isolate yourself without technology, and if you feel like taking in less food, then take in less food, and if that's good for you, but and then just like sit, you know, and do a lot of sitting. And if anyone's interested, look up Tom Brown. Tom Brown is a really phenomenal author that speaks a lot about this plant communication. I remember specifically in his book, you know, he talks about how through training through grandfather, this Indian kind of wise man figure who comes into his life, he's able to correctly discern the 23 medicinal uses of an oak tree by sitting with the oak tree and by noticing if he goes with by his center, if it's tight or if it's relaxed. And so any question can be asked, and there's either a tightness or a relaxation, and they did that, and I'm not certain all the way because then they get into some pretty advanced, you know, like asking where it's not listening tightening, it's letting information come. But his method is very simple, and it's not saying that I use that, but I just think that out of all the modalities, it's isolation and quieting of the mind, because you know it's, I don't know, I don't want to bring in a weird slippery slope here, but you know, if anyone's ever taken any psychedelics, there's something that came over me the very first time I did. And I haven't taken psychedelics, nor do I in a long time, nor will I again. But I remember the first experience I had of feeling like I have been blind for years. Like I just felt like all these plants and beings were trying to speak with me, and I just like was doing this and being like, where are you at? I can't see you. And it's like, oh, you're actually right there. I just need to pay attention to you. So that was something that I experienced, and I would have experienced that on my own anywhere. But
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, my conversation is it's not that different from you, because you're right. Certain plants don't have that much of an interest, but every now and then, you know, there's a few that, you know, smell the flowers in the morning on this path that I walk down, and some of them I'll feel them telling me that, hey, you know, what about us? You know, what about us? And I'm like, okay, come on, I'm coming. Give me a second. Let me get done with you. I'm coming. And you know, I'll feel them say, well, what about yesterday? You said that yesterday, and where have you been? So it's quite it's quite interesting for me. I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, clearly there's an energetic exchange. It's possible that the mind body complex synthesizes it in terms of conversation. You know, it kind of converts that energy into a way that I can make sense of it. But it's quite fascinating nonetheless.
Well, true, and you know, I think it's important. You know, Anastasia's mission was to show biological proof for everything mystical, biological proof of teleportation. The biological proof that I stumbled across today of all of this mystical communication is pheromones, invisible, slight scents that interact like a lock or a key into a lock with every being. You know, there's this chemical makeup exchange. So it's like when we walk into a room, immediately the room is filled with our pheromones. Just like when we walk up to a plant, immediately their pores are filled with our pheromone. And you know, we're looking at that again on the physical level. Like we know that those essences, those ethers, have a lot more layers to them. And I think that the plants then, you know, take in that information and then they release their pheromones, their ethers, and it's this biological exchange. It is much more than that, but you know, on a practical level, most animals communicate through pheromones, you know, and we're more than an animal, but you know, we have qualities of the natural world in us, you know. I'm flexible like a blade of grass in a field or whatever, right? We have all these properties. Um,
Just
so
to add to that, just in case anybody is like curious to go, like I know from the herbalism stuff that I've been studying, one is the Bach flower. He like, or maybe it's pronounced batch, but it's spelled Bach. Anyway, he was like, it's worth looking him up. He had like documented an incredible amount around the essence of the flowers and the medicinal. And then the other, I remember another piece that jumped in, if people have heard of the Finhorn community in Scotland. It's like this incredible place where a bunch of hippies went, I think probably in the 60s or 70s or something, but they basically took a completely like inhospitable, barren piece of land, sat with on the land and listened to the nature and redirected, like they created an absolutely like flourishing ecoclimate, and food was grown and they were like highly successful, and people, this was not a place where like food was normally being grown in that area of Scotland at all. And they like rerouted like problems that they had with like rats or like like infestations. They actually used like, they listened to the animals and then asked them to like not to eat this certain area and to do this and do that, and like all through like just paying attention and meditating and listening. Anyway, it's on my bucket list of places that I'd like to visit, because I guess the place still exists and it's still okay. Did someone put something? Yeah, on here. So yeah,
it's so wild that you just mentioned Findhorn, because I found out about Findhorn through my daughter, Kaylin. She found this most incredible, when she's really young, we found this woman, I still don't know how, who is just completely an angel. She's Hawaiian and she has this spirit, and her father was the financial controller of Findhorn. I had never heard of it before.
Yeah.
And so I was just learning about it over the years, but I was just going to ask him if he could consult on this, you know, as we're developing new settlements, because he saw what worked. And I remember him saying he also saw what didn't work, but that it was that, you know, that essence is there. And his daughter, who was taking care of Kaylin, we just reconnected. She's helping me name our piece of land. And like it's like bringing that back.
Mm-hmm.
That's so bizarre. I don't even know as much as you do about Findhorn, but it just keeps coming up.
Yeah, all I know is the story like that was shared at our herbalism class, and it was like, okay, that's like on one of those like my bucket list to like learn more, maybe go visit it one day, like yeah. I'm really curious, because as you know, like my children's books are all like, each one of them, the subtitle is listening to our nature, like, and it's our nature as in O, like capital OUR, like each book they're talking to something in nature. The first one, a tree, the second one, an owl, and the third one I'm working on right now with my publisher is a conscious stream of wisdom. And each time they are talking to this, listening to the nature, but the nature is always bringing them back into themselves. And then they're like, this is like this exchange, this interchange. So it's yeah, like I'm just really very much the telepathy of our ability, which is not just necessarily mental, but like you said, like scent, the microbes, the harmonic tones of these, everything is part of our, yeah, we're like our senses are we're just starting to fully I think like the ancient future, like we have known how to use the technology of our body and we're remembering now how to use the technology of our body. Yeah.
You have something to say, Maureen?
Oh, sure. We're talking about plants. I just thought I would share a really profound personal experience I had, which really just showed how interrelated we are with plants. So, anyway, I had this huge elephant ears plant, and it literally was dripping big drips of water. I'd never seen that before, like right at the end. And, it wasn't overwatered, but even if it's overwatered, it doesn't drip water, right? Like, and anyway, I had to put a towel on the floor. It was dripping so much water. And people are saying, oh my goodness, your plant is crying. And anyway, I just sort of put it off to like, oh, that's sort of bizarre. But anyway, this was before, it had last happened for a whole week before I had a shamanic journey workshop at my house. And then during this shamanic journey for me, it made me realize how much I was holding a lot of grief over my relationship, my divorce. And anyway, I really, really cried. And then in the journey, I got the vision of the plant said, I loved you so much. I was crying the tears for you that you weren't able to cry. And anyway, after I really was able to cry, the plant stopped dripping the water that it had been dripping for a week. But it was such
I yeah, I like almost got like you started saying that, like I like had like these, like I didn't start crying, but like I could feel that emotion coming up. That's a really profound story.
Yeah, I just thought I would share. It's like, it's nice. I love how people are vulnerable and tell like such stories. And I thought, well, I'd never sort of say that in a group, but anyway, it's nice to feel safe enough to say that, and it just showed me, like, I know that, you can communicate to plants sort of basic needs, but I had no idea that it was that intricate a relationship and that they would actually care for you so much that they would actually help you release grief, like literally. Have you ever seen a plant cry? you know? So,
Interesting though that you're saying this, because it's making me think now back, and I haven't thought twice about this, but at the base of my oak tree, there is occasionally sometimes this weird outspurt of like white that I don't have never seen. I mean, I've seen around certain plants. It's in you call them spit bugs, I think, here in Missouri, and they leave this what looks like saliva. But
mm,
out of the side of this tree, dripping down at the base, like a whole stream of this liquid. And it's just interesting because that my relationship with that tree is actually, I mean, it's hugely impactful. I can be in a down mood and I can feel my chest up against the tree. I can feel this like current running through me, and I always am just like, thank you. Like, I feel like they gift us these things. The world around us is built to sustain us, and
mm,
um it's just really profound how loved and cared for we are.
yeah, just
I
so
mean,
so cared for, so
no
beautiful.
one's, yeah, like no one's alone. Like if you think you're alone, like walk outside and stand on your grass. Your grass knows you, you know? Um, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to highlight Jewel's book and or publishing. Is it your this is your personal website, Jewel? The Little Philosophers.
Yeah, it's one. I have two websites, one for my like soul life, my Akashic record stuff, and then one just purely for the children's books.
Is this is the Akashic Records one linked in here?
No, I can attach that one too.
If you don't feel comfortable, no worries.
Oh,
No.
I don't mind it. I have it. It's a good question. I have the Little Philosophers on the Akashic Records one, but I don't have it the other way around with the, I should probably make a link. It's there, but then my newest book, The Little Philosophers and the Conscious Stream of Wisdom, I haven't, it's not on there yet because we're in creation mode, co-creation mode, with my illustrator. So, but if you are like curious to watch the progress with the illustrator, I do document quite a bit on Instagram. If you're on that social media, if you're not, I totally understand. But yeah, the third book should be launching in the fall. So yeah, there'll be a new one before Christmas, which I'm really excited about. This one, it's like water's my love. Like I think I was in the water for thousands of years, like speaking of molecules, that's a whole other story, but I love water passionately. So this one feels very, very, very close to my heart, this particular book that we're working on. Yeah.
That's amazing. I just checked out. I just briefly glanced through your site, and it's a very warming site. I really enjoy it, and I'm grateful for the work you're doing, as I'm sure many children are grateful for the work you're doing.
Thank
I
you.
didn't know you have an MED in child literacy development, which is huge. I know so many people that as kids struggled with that, so I just want to say that's really cool.
If just since you said that, if you do know of any communities or people that have decided to like leave the mainstream, I've been working on it for months, but I've put together a program to teach homeschoolers, wild schoolers, world schoolers, anybody that wants to teach their own children how to read. I just put together a program, and I've launched it. It'll run for the first time this May and then I would like to make it so that it's like, I'm going to run it a few times as like a live, like working with the parents, and then create it so that I can create, what's it called? Like, support, so parents can have the program and they can use it. And then they can also have like access to like Q&A, like where they can like, we can work as a community to support children learning. But anyway, I'm going on a big thing there. But if you
That's
do
cool.
know anybody that's looking for that kind of support, reach out to me, DM me, and
Okay.
yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. And then is it just English based?
Yeah. So the learning, it's funny that you asked that too, because really what I'm teaching is how to teach. So the what is like, you could use it to apply it to any language, although I'll be using English as the model or whatever as I'm doing the teaching, but it's more it's more the how. Did I say the what the first time? I mean the how. It's how, like how we teach our children, how like we're re-engaging again. It's that ancient future nurturing of like how we create the neural pathways, how we activate ourselves as active learners. So the program is specific for learning early literacy, like learning how to read and write at the initial stages. Or if there's a child that's been struggling to learn to read that is older, then it works. But yeah, it can, the how can be applied pretty much to any learning, because it's like remembering how we learn and remembering how we nurture, because both of those things has been we've been separated from a lot of the innate abilities and potentials that we have just through the systems that have been running here for 150 years. Not that long actually, but enough to change a few generations, right? So we're kind of reclaiming that. So I wanted to create a program to help people whom have already stepped out of this of conventional learning, but are feeling like, I don't know how to teach my child how to read, or like there's that feeling of like, I know how to read, but I don't know how to teach it, or my child's been struggling for years. I have like the expertise, like been doing this for 10 years with unbelievable results in the high priority schools in my area. And so I was like, why would I not take this information? Like, I'm like a highly skilled early literacy intervention specialist, right? But why do I have this coveted little knowledge in my little world? Like, why is this not being given to the parents, the number one nurturers of our children? So that's why it's like the beginning of, I think I'm going to be creating a number of different ways to support parents. Some of them are going to get more spiritual, like more to do with how we're raising like the fully soul awake, but this is like learning the code. The language is just a code. So yeah,
This is huge, Jewel. You're like really inspiring me. We a couple of the people in the Ringing Cedars community, we're working on like just really brainstorming at this point what education platforms would look like, what an educational foundation would be, how would that support look. And I think that this is just interesting because when we think about settlements and we think about kin's domains, we're really calling into the question here, to what degree are we involved with things that are existing in the outside world. And I think a big one for people is food, and then the second big one is children and education. Because there's this kind of subconscious, I think, little tiny fear in people that it's like, if I don't send my kid to school, am I robbing them of something? And it's like, okay, well, no, but let's how can we make sure that they end up as educated as a Harvard graduate? I believe it's possible through people like you, through our own intuition, and through letting a child just be, from what I'm learning and from the schooling I've went through and going through and ready to exit, is it's like the learning system is almost diametrically opposed to how we actually learn. And that is what is so fascinating to me, because that's the way with so many things in the world, right? It's like, they're like polar opposites. And so I think we just are flipping that. And it's really inspiring me to hear that there's people like yourself doing that, flipping the script.
Yeah. And I think because what happens is like children are conditioned through conventional education institutions. There's need for massive evolution, but I'm not sure that's going to come at a rapid rate through the institutions themselves. I think it's going to happen through us reclaiming, like Megan said, the honor of raising our children. But we need to acquire the skills and the confidence to do that. And like literacy is a big one. I think that they're like, in terms of what I hear in like the light languages and things like that, like the English language, it's our current main mode of communication in sort of an international way. Like the English language, is it a complete language? No. Is there incomplete pieces that actually jar our ability to fully communicate? Yes. So to me, it's like right now, it's a great code to know so that you can use it to express and to absorb information. Do I think we're going to always use that as our main mode of, like, right now it's like, most, like, if you know multiple languages, English is always one of them, right? Like English seems to be the like one that's globally. There's a lot of, you know, it's the global whatever language at the moment. So it's a good one to have under your belt. But so that's why I want to be able to empower parents that are making those decisions to have the skills. It's like you can learn it. It's the best, absolutely the best learning like you can acquire, to be a teacher, to teach your children, to teach anything. It's like, it's really powerful. So I'm really I'm proud of the, the thing I put together, and I'm like hoping that
You should be. Is there a way we can at least just check it out? Like not saying we're gonna buy it, but
yes.
like,
Hold on, I can put that link in too. So I'll
okay,
stop talking and I'll find links.
please do.
True, it's
So
quite inspiring to see you living out your purpose. It really is. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Hasn't been the simplest route, but my soul is like, you know, getting over all sorts of like every human, you know, you get into patterns, addictions, numbing, like I have definitely struggled in different chapters of my life and felt very hopeless. And now I feel like,
Now you're giving hope. You're
yes,
giving hope to people.
yeah. So whatever you feel lights you up, just keep doing that. That's what fuels whatever you are a creator. What's coming through you is going to come through you as long as you're nourishing yourself. So if that's talking to the plants, growing the plants, learning about the stars, teaching about the stars, like whatever it is that's lighting you up, the more you do that, the easier it is for what your soul essence and your service is. Like, I don't know what the right language, but it's like we are creator beings. And I was even like, what am I supposed to like, we overthink things. When you're just aligning with the things that light you up, the things just start to come out without even having to think. It's like you just know. It's a much, yeah. So like Wyatt, you've said so many things that like help that process, like detaching from technology for a while, just sitting, you know, just like allowing yourself to be still and be with yourself first and foremost. And if you can put yourself in a place of nature, that's going to help co-regulate that so much quicker with like God's source, which is in you, right? So, all right, I said I was going to stop talking and I haven't stopped, so I'm really going to stop now.
And put some links in the chat. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah. So kind of jumping in with this conversation. So just a little background. I was raised, or I was homeschooled pretty much from right when I started out. You know, elementary school, pre-elementary school, whatever the youngest age of schooling is. And I went all the way through high school, like various forms. So sometimes there was co-ops where it was sort of like private education for homeschoolers, and sometimes there were online classes, especially as I went to high school, and pretty much my mother and stopped being able to teach the higher level, or stopped having the confidence to teach the higher level math, and my father didn't really have as much time. So that you know, that's a little bit my background, and then of course I'm really eager to have my kids homeschooled when the time comes. So this is really fantastic to hear about. One kind of question that I have, and I just thought I'd throw this out there, or rather, yeah, just like some sort of topic, is my mother, you know, listening to her stories after. So I was really successful homeschool, I guess, case, and my sister was a fairly successful one. I think at high school she started losing the motivation to do it at home. so she ended up doing better in going kind of into these other programs. So that was one challenging thing. And then my brother, he's my older brother. He did amazingly homeschooling, but there was also challenges. And my mother just talks about, oh, there's these challenges homeschooling, and sometimes people talk about it like it's this perfect experience, and it produces superstar children and all of that. But then sometimes it can be a lot more challenging, and those are the things that she felt weren't really talked about when she decided to start homeschooling. These challenges she faced, and so I guess I'm curious whether people have heard about these challenges these days, and because from reading the Ringing Cedars books, there's this vision I think we all share, and that our children are going to grow up in these natural landscapes, and maybe that's the key. They're going to grow up in these natural landscapes, and they're going to surpass us in understandings of things. And I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, what experiences do people have with homeschooling? Are there issues that people have experienced? Solutions to those issues is the thing about having the experience in a natural setting versus a non-natural setting. Is that is that a huge component of it? I guess this is a very this is a very broad question, or broad topic, but it's one that's come to mind repeatedly. Like, I've got all these visions, and then it worked out very well for me, but there's also a little bit of fear, worry that it's not going to go as smoothly for everyone. And how would we address that? How do we address that? Hopefully it's going to be a non-problem. But yeah.
I think that's a legit concern. And I think like my impression of homeschooling prior, like when before I had children, I was like, I would love to I actually went into education so that I could homeschool my kids if I needed to, because I struggled in the education system. Like, I was overstimulated. I was a highly sensitive child, even though like I was an 80s kid. So would my parents have described me as highly sensitive? No, I was resilient. I was, as a daycare kid, like I learned how to survive, but I suffered, and I had hiding places at every school that I went to. I was also moved around a bit, in the bushes, always and nowadays kids can't even go in the woods or go in a bush. Like they're all like, you have to, like, at least in here, I don't know what it's like other places. So I had this idea, if I had kids that struggled in the education system, whether it was emotionally or academically, that I could pull them. But I had massive fears, because my impression of homeschooling up until that point was that it was like really fringe, probably didn't go very well. Like they weren't going to go to post-secondary. Like there was a lot of like, I guess, fear around like how successful it would be, whether you'd be judged, so on and so forth. And then God gave me a child. My first son loves school, like lives for it, is thriving. His teachers are like, he's a model student, like he is super social. But so I've had to have lots of conversations with him to be like, hey, want to try a homeschooling year? Because I'm really passionate about this and I think it'd be really fun. And he's into it. So we're going to do the history of existence. We're going to make a huge timeline, even though we're going to talk about how it's not really linear, but we're going to bring in all the different modalities and science and everything, and look at like from Big Bang forward to the Earth. I want to teach based on projects and then pull in the curriculum, like but I want to like, yeah, be a little bit less like, so you're talking about the problems with homeschooling. I think everything in has problems. Like the school system has massive problems. I mean, sit in a staff room for 20 minutes and you literally feel like pulling your hair out. Like it's the complaint level and the struggles, and watching kids day in and day out, like still now, like I don't know where it's like everywhere else, but in here, in this where we are, everyone's still wearing masks at school. They're like, the teachers have their little cubby things set up on their desks so that they're all isolated. Like people say, oh, kids need to go to school for socialization. I'm like, my friends that I know are homeschooling, their kids are outside playing together. They're ice skating, they're building forts. They're not sitting at desks behind little kiosky things. Like, so, and don't get me wrong, like I've been told by both my parents, you know, that what I'm doing next year, it's like my sabbatical year from work. I've been planning it for a long time to work on my soul's work, which is what you see on my websites and stuff. And then I decided to throw homeschooling in on top of it. And they're like, you're crazy. You're taking on way too much. And I was like, but it's everything, actually. Like, I know it's going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be the right kind of hard work, if you know what I mean. Like, so yeah. So I think to answer your question, like, of course, I know it's hard. And I think there are parents that need support. And I think especially with certain things like, if they have a kid that's struggling to learn to read, they're going to start losing steam and being like, I'm not qualified. I can't do this. So that's where I feel like, you know, at least there's one piece, you know, that I can throw in. And then if we find more and more people that are leaving the education system, maybe that want to support families and people who are doing this, then we can create hubs, we can create, support networks and that kind of thing, so that, yeah, so people aren't totally alone.
I think that's awesome. I want to let these gentlemen go and let you guys know I'm finding some magnificent quotes in the books that we're going to be bringing up in a couple moments here regarding education. So I'll let these folks go here. I don't know who had their hand up first, Alex or Mark. Either one of you guys, feel free.
I think Alex has his hand up from the past, but I'm not sure.
Oh,
I'll go ahead. Jewel, it's delightful how much you're contributing to this meeting tonight, and we're going to come back to you yet again. I wanted to touch on the beautiful exposition of your speaking of the planetary attunements, and I would add the word purification, that disincarnates go through after they die, and maybe as they come in as well. And I haven't studied the Bardos deeply. So there's probably knowledge there that I haven't accessed. But I feel very connected with the Bardos, and I have memories of the Bardos, and I've seen souls go through the Bardos. And the connection between the planets and the Bardos, and the planetary alignments and the purification of the Bardos, is something that struck me for the first time, really, when you were speaking. And I didn't associate the Bardos with the planetary tunings and alignments and energies and vibrations and all the rest of it. But it seems to me that they are, and in a way, you know, they're one. And the Bardos different Bardos are associated with different planets. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that. And for those,
Yeah, go ahead. Are you going to explain what bardos are? Because I don't know.
oh, okay. I was going to say, for those who may not know, um, the Tibetan Book of the Dead is, of course, Tibetan. And the knowledge that the Tibetans have of reincarnation and souls coming in and the bardos and all the rest of it is extremely profound. You know, they've made a very deep study of it. And the bardos are places where the souls go to purify. And there are numerous bardos. There are many bardos, maybe, you know, in this case, as many as the planets or more. And it's just that, where the souls go to purify before they're ready to go into their next phase of existence.
I just Googled it and I feel as though whatever connection came to you is like, it's like was information for you, you know, like you were connecting the dots and understanding something on a deeper level that you were already well versed in, and then you had like a more illumination as to what that actually, like you understood it deeper, like more synapses, more connections. I'm curious to learn more about it now myself. And like I say, I see the things, and then now I'm really interested to learn what's our interpretation here. How have other people seen what I'm seeing? How have they explained it? What images have they used? Like because a lot of artists, well, all of us are tuned into this field, and so it's like we're constantly, how we're re-expressing it, and then so whether it's through like writing or art or like there's just I feel like I'm the more I see, and then the more I like learn about it, and then, you know, it can go down rabbit holes. Sometimes I go down rabbit holes and then I'm like, this isn't what I'm actually seeing. This is like something, like it can be very like, how do I say, everybody's on their own journey. Like we're all like these prisms that are picking up the signals and then understanding them our own way. So to be careful too, I find I have to be careful not to be like, go down someone else's interpretation and be like too much like, this is the way, because my or this is like the
Dogma.
only way, right? This is one person, or maybe multiple people, like, but do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like,
I totally understand it. And actually, there's one more thing that I'd like to say, and that my favorite quote from the Tibetan Book of the Dead is, "Die before you die, so that when you die, you don't die." And Ramana Maharshi, you know, always comes to mind for me. As a teenager, he was questioning who he was and the nature of the life and the soul and death and all of that. And he lay down and he died. He died, you know, as pretty much completely one can die without his body dropping. And it completely transformed him, and he ran away from home and he went to Arunachala and he went into silence for 40 years and the rest of it. And this, of course, is tied in with my my modality of befriending death, which I feel is extremely important. But that whole knowledge, you might at some point look into the bardos. that whole knowledge is quite extensive. And now I'll shut up
Oh
or
no.
stop talking.
That's
or
a
whatever.
kinder way. That's a kinder way to talk to yourself, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
Oh, can I
okay.
jump in?
Yeah, go ahead. And then I have some quotes prepared for us about child
Okay.
rearing that came through.
Okay. Yeah, so the jumping back into the education discussion, yes, with homeschooling, my experience, and I've seen this actually on the college levels. A lot of college is actually really like homeschoolers because they know they're educated very well. So what one thing that you get with homeschoolers is you cut out a lot of the inefficiencies in the system. There's a lot of slowness in the school system because it's trying to account for so many different learning speeds and so many different students. And then sometimes it's just not. It's put together in a big bureaucratic way that's not very efficient. So homeschoolers, yes, they have a or I guess we could say we have a what's the word? we have reputation for being a little ahead of the curve in many areas. We're able to go faster and do some really cool stuff. It could slow down a little bit once you get into the high school level, just because resources to teach the high school classes can become a little harder to come by. But yeah, in terms of like you were saying, oh, if I homeschool my kids, will they ever get to post-secondary? Well, I think there's definitely a good chance. I think like I didn't really go into what these difficulties with homeschooling are very deeply because partially because I don't know them very intimately myself. So the reason I did so well with homeschooling and I went all the way to the end is because I was fairly motivated in my high school and even coming into college. Like I was motivated to do well and get through the classes and get the work done. I think that's where a lot of say my sister, she sort of started to losing motivation. She needed to have someone who wasn't her parent tell her to do the work and put consequences out, because for some reason the consequences that her mother was putting out for getting her work done, or whatever motivation she was being provided, wasn't really clicking for her, and she wasn't really feeling motivated to do her work at all. And I think my brother had a similar issue, but then there's all the reasons that I just don't understand that my mother talks about. And she's told me a little bit about them, but I guess I've not been in the position that she's been in, trying to homeschool 3 kids. And having troubles, but I do know, for example, my one of my best friends growing up, she was a single child, and she had a very stressful relationship with her mother, and I think homeschooling was part of that, and it was partially because the way I understand it, and this may not be perfect, but the mother was essentially pushing her ideals into the child, and so the mother was really really good at math, and the child, my friend hated math, and she was pushing, I guess, all those expectations into her, and like almost forcing them into her, and it created a lot of tension. And you can I mean, that tension is still around today, even though she's graduated. So I guess there's the reason I brought those up is that the words that my mother used is there's this going into homeschooling, there was this I guess expectation that everything was going to be daisies and fun and wonderful, and your children would become super educated and everything would go fantastically. And she started running into these issues, and she she felt like she couldn't really bring those up because then all of her homeschooling peers would just say, well, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it terribly, and not be supportive. So I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on there, and not all of it I understand, but anyway, it's just something I wanted to bring up as something that, you know, I definitely want to go homeschool my children, but I definitely want to go in understanding, okay, so what could go wrong? How do we do this in a way that can account for any potential issues that arise, and maybe utilize the entirety of the community you have around you.
I think that's key too. And I think like probably the most paramount thing is going to be to actually really tune into your child themselves and not think that like you can find a formula that's going to be foolproof, because you will find that formula and then your kid will prove you wrong. So it's like trusting them as learners, trusting your ability, and then recognizing too that I think, like you said, like our children are our greatest teachers, and if we are pushing our agenda or our lens through which we're perceiving the world onto them, and it's not resonating for them, there is going to be a natural pushback for that, right? So that's like, we either then wake up to see that, or we continue to push, and then that can create tension and for years, like, you know, until that growth or whatever happens. I think that motivation is intrinsic if we're doing something we're passionate about, but then it becomes like when things get hard, we have to learn the skill of like perseverance. But also I think the children that are coming in now as well are coming to break the systems. And so sometimes motivation to just do the thing because that's what we're being told to do isn't always necessary, and or even the programming that we want anymore. A lot of what's in the curriculum is not programming we even want anymore. So I think kids can have a radar for that, and we need to suss out the difference. Is it just that you're feeling like unmotivated today and we have to figure out how to generate the perseverance and the motivation, or is this actually outdated programming that we actually don't need to ingest and absorb, right? Because there's both going on. Yeah,
I think that's huge.
Interesting thoughts.
Guys, I do want to say this call I'll have to be ending in 5 minutes here. I have a scheduled phone call, so I don't want, hopefully that's not too abrupt. But I do want to share these that delightfully have just literally come out of thin air. Like, I did not have to really look for these at all. One of them, I opened the book right up to it. So I just want to share a couple of quotes here that really hit on what we're talking about. And Alex, what you were saying is, you know, these difficulties. For me, my practical, like I'm a very practically kind of oriented person. Like, I need to see it. I need to see things, and I need to be, you know, I'm an entrepreneur. So for me, it's like I can see when things are laid out clearly. I can see what I can do. And that's what I feel with with these kin's domains, is everything is so clear to me. And what you were speaking at, Jewel, about the system is really funny, because this quote, I was reading this quote, take a more careful look around you, Vladimir. See the trees, grasses, and flowers growing. How could one possibly draw up an advanced schedule for the days and hours when they should be watered? You should not going about watering your flowers when they are being washed with water from heaven simply because someone worked out a detailed schedule for watering them. Now you're going too far, Anastasia. That's just nonsense. That's not an example for raising children. And she goes on to speak about how, where was that quote at? Basically, everything is a system, and that when we think about why are we so averted to getting rid of the system, I think it's because the system's so embedded. You know, it's like there is no system. She says, but you know, Vladimir, this is exactly what does happen. So people have this will to have their child be happy, is what she's saying, but they don't end up like that. And she says this is exactly what happens. No matter what the system, it is still only a system. It is always calculated to wean the heart and soul away from man when he is still small and subject him to the system, so that he grows up like everyone else in a way that will fit the system. And so it goes on for ages on end, so as to prevent the human soul from experiencing clarity of vision, to prevent man from discovering himself in his beauty as a whole with a God-given soul. Yes, man, the ruler of all the universe. These were just all profound for me. 133. Those are in book 3 in the chapter of Father's Role. And then this one as well. Thanks to creators, all newborns have such an ability when they are still in the space of love, and nothing has yet erased this magnificent element within them. The space of love begins with the mother's womb, and then only spreads a space. Only man is endowed with the power to wreck or perfect this space. Huge one for me. Book 1, chapter Helper Mentor for Your Child, page 94. A 9-year-old child brought up in the natural world, Jewel, 9-year-old, has a far more accurate perception of creation than all of the scientific institutions of your world, or indeed many of your prominent scholars. I mean, it says it right there, pretty plain. And then in here, what do you will not find a single system, book 4, chapter 30. You will not find a single system of child raising that will suit everyone, Vladimir, if only because each one must first respond to the question of exactly what kind of individual they want to raise their child to be. What do you mean, Anastasia? What kind? A man, of course, a happy, intelligent man. If so, then the parents themselves must become that kind of man. And if they themselves have not been able to achieve happiness, then they should know what has prevented them from doing so. So that for me like hits it home too, like what it is I want my child to become, I need to start becoming too, and I can't be saying like, Johnny, come over here and let's teach you about not doing this bad thing, and then Johnny sees me do, it makes so much sense to me. So yeah, I'm sorry to is there any closing thoughts here? I just felt so strongly about sharing those, and they literally came out of thin air. Like I just would flip to the book and they opened. So I hope that elucidates things clearly. We don't really need to translate them. Definitely everyone's soul has picked up the information it needs. Thank you, Jewel. I'm really excited to hear and learn about your schooling method. I get like jittery thinking about it. So I'm sure it's going to touch a lot of people. I'm super stoked about it, and honored to have you here. Honored to have all of you here. Light Dragon, Brian, thank you for being here. You said you wanted a group like this for a while. Danesh, Mark, Maureen, Wendy, Alex, Jamie, Shane, Elizabeth Dexter, Ellen Mary, Marie. I know you're just sitting there quietly smiling and maybe dancing. Marie likes to dance. So thank you all for being here, and I appreciate your understanding and me having to go a little early today. But we have the European Community Call on Sunday, and no, not Gabriel's Call. Gabriel's Call is next week. So the Pristine Origins Call is canceled. I hope everyone saw that. Ariane's moving to a food forest, so it's a happy thing. It's a happy thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a happy thing. Yeah, she's moving in BC to a food forest that's going to need rehabbing, and she's actually going to be doing some really cool things there. So I'm not going to say too much. Probably already said too much, but it's an exciting thing. So
There is a goddess's call on Saturday for the new moon and the Koya dance that Marie leads.
thank you. Cool. Okay, well, thank you all for being here. This call will be up on YouTube in the next couple of days. I love you all so much. It's an honor to be in this community and to be sharing space with all of you. Thank you so much. You lift me up. Like my eyes are seeing things that, it's truly an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Wyatt.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.